Welcome to this 4-part tutorial. On the first part we will learn how to paint the main body of Ghazghkul. The first thing I did was to get the zenithal prime layer. This is a popular practice because it helps you during the process to keep well identified the dark and light parts of the model. I will start painting all the base colors that we will cover. This kind of model has so many elements that it's easy to feel overwhelmed. So painting the bases first gives you a good sense of how long it will take you and makes you feel like you are progressing really fast. So let's go ahead and paint lead belcher on all the silver sections. Lead belcher is a really thick paint and can get blobs quite often, so thin it down and test your brush on a palette before applying it. Next is the black armour, and the paint of choice for this will be Vallejo Heavy Charcoal. This paint has a lot of dark blue pigment that will help us create a seriously dark looking black armour. Next we will paint the blue parts. For this I chose Canter Blue. This blue is great for a base color since it's really saturated and dark. Even if later the plan is to make the blue segments bright and intense, this will help to make a nice base. Moving on to the bones and horns, we will apply a couple layers of Ushabti bone. This paint is fairly clear. We will see how the zenithal prime will affect the appearance quite a lot. Now for the copper sections, we will use Hashut Copper. As mentioned before in the Death Guard tutorial, this paint has a pretty neutral orange hue, which will contrast well with the blue elements of the model. Apply 2 thin layers and no more. Now it's time to apply the washes. On the silver section, I will apply Agrax Earthshade, a little bit thinned down. We want to cover all of the silver with it, but not a lot. We need to add the oil sensation everywhere, but not to make it lose the metallic sensation. For the bones, we will use Seraphine Sepia. This wash has a lot more yellow pigment than Agrax. To get this working well, we need to make sure the wash goes all the way in the deepest recesses. Now for the copper areas, I will add Vallejo Skin Wash Ink. Vallejo inks have a lot more pigment than Citadel washes, so you need to thin this down a lot more to not overdo it. I was not satisfied with the amount of color I had on the copper sections, but I still should not add more metallic paints. So instead I will use a wash. This will fix the situation and give it a great result. Then I proceed to go back to Agrax Earthshade for the rest of the model, the black areas and the blue areas too. When the brown pigments mix with the blue ones, we will get a really interesting color, because it will look almost black, but at the same time a very saturated color. After the washes get dry, I will go back to lead belcher for the largest areas of silver metal. This will make it blend much better with the upcoming highlights. With that step finished, I will start now with the highlights of Stormhost Silver. I want this to be the edges of the miniature, but also want to apply it on the actual edge of the claw, to give it a more realistic sensation of sharpness. We must not forget that the big guy is in fact wearing pants. For this the choice of paint is going to be Steel Legion drab. A couple layers of this paint will be enough. Then we will use the all-reliable Agrax Earthshade for the pants to make them blend into the deeper sections. Next I will reapply Steel Legion drab in the more exposed areas, which honestly are not a lot. Finally I will use Rackard Flesh for the highlights on the pants and for the tiny threads on them. Next is the horns of the model. For this we will need to mix and blend little by little Ushabti bone and Rhinox hide. I will start making a mix of Rhinox hide and Ushabti bone. With the biggest amount is Ushabti bone and just a little bit of Rhinox hide. But little by little, as I get closer to the point of the horn, I am adding more and more Rhinox hide, until we reach the point in which is totally Rhinox hide. If doing this is problematic to you, what I recommend is that you start making mixes on your palette. Start by making a mix of 3:1 Ushabti bone and Rhinox hide, then one 50-50, and then one 3:1 Rhinox hide and Ushabti bone. And apply them in a way that the darkest one is closer to the tip of the horn. Then you can once again mix the paints. Mix the previously 3:1 Ushabti bone and Rhinox hide with the 50-50, and apply it only in the parts where the transition is occurring. This is gonna make it way smoother. Now with that step done, we're going to the highlights of the bone colors. And for this we will add Vallejo Elfic Flesh, which will be applied on the most exposed areas as well as the edges. Now we will go back to the black armor. We will reapply Vallejo Heavy Charcoal on the surfaces of the black armor to create a little bit of a transition between the dark blue and the dark brown. This will create the illusion of blackness and the absence of color, while at the same time we avoid using gray. which instead of adding darkness or lightness will just desaturate the color. Now we need Dark Reaper. This paint will act as the edge highlight for most of the hidden areas of the model. We still need to accentuate them, but not as much as the most exposed areas. We're going to give much more focus on the most visible sections of the armor, like the shoulders and the chest. Next, I will simply add white to the Dark Reaper. This is going to reveal the amount of blue in the paint. That will be enough for the stronger highlights on the model. I will apply it on the most prominent edges, or where I think the model needs more impact to the eye. Next level tip. To create the small reflections, we need to make a gradient, going from heavy charcoal, Dark Reaper to the light grey mix we made. This gradient must be subtle and small. If the gradient is big, then the armor no longer will be black but dark grey. Keep this in mind and only add this kind of highlights where you think the armor is getting hit by the most direct light. After we finish our black, our blue needs to contrast it well enough. For this we need to paint the blue highlights. The choice will be Calgar blue, some dry brush on the surfaces, and then the edge highlights with Fenrisian grey, and we are good to go. The next step now is going to be the head and the square patterns of the orc, and for this we're going to go to the next video.